So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jack the car up in the air. You don't have to do this, but installing these bumpers is going to be a lot easier if you can get underneath the car as well as take the wheels off. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Let's get the car into the air. And with the car jacked up in the air, we're going to go ahead and take off all of the wheels so that way we can replace the base model fender liners with the new Nismo ones. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, with the wheels all removed, we are going to start with the front bumper first, and we actually need to go underneath the car to be able to take out the splash guard, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, to remove the splash guard underneath here, this huge plastic piece that sits underneath the car, there are going to be a bunch of these 10mm bolts that are going to be all around the edge. So we just need to go and undo all of those. And then I believe there are a total of 3 of these little plastic tabs here. You just need to get a flathead underneath both sides of the centerpiece to be able to peel that up, and then you should be able to take these tabs out. Now, I do not recall if the base model splash guard is compatible with the Nismo edition, but I did order the aluminum splash guard from Z1, so I am going to be trading this out. I would make sure you hold on to all of your hardware though, because we will need to be reusing a lot of that when we go to install the splash guard again. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go ahead and remove this splash guard here. There are, I think, 3 10mm bolts that are holding this little thing on, and then we will undo as well all of the clips that are on the bottom side of the fender here. And now we're going to remove this little plastic piece here. It's held on by 3 clips. There's one on the driver's side as well as one on the passenger side. Go ahead and remove those. And with that small plastic piece removed, we can now remove the base model fender. I think there's a total of 5 clips that should still be holding it on. We've got one, of course, right here. There's one sitting way up here at the top of the fender liner. And then we have a couple more sitting at the back. There's one up here, one right here. So go ahead and remove all those clips, then you should be able to pull the fender liner out of the car. We only need to do the front one. We don't need to do the one at the back. I believe this one stays. For the Nismo bumper, we just need to replace this fender. And with the fender liner removed, the next thing is to take out the bolt that holds on the corner of the bumper. You can see that right here. That's a 10mm bolt. There's one on this side, and then of course, one on the other side of the car. Alright, now that we have those 2 bolts removed, we're going to go ahead and pop the hood here. And then go ahead and prop this up so that way we can access the couple of clips that line the edge of the bumper here. And then we should be able to pull it off. Alright, now that all of those clips are taken off at the top of the bumper here, we are going to pull the bumper off. Now, the only thing that's going to be holding on still are going to be a couple of clips that are going to be underneath the headlight, as well as up here around the edge of the bumper. You just need to pull on those gently out away from the car to be able to get them to release, and then you should be able to pull the entire bumper off. Ideally, this would be easiest if you have like a friend to be able to help you, but it should be fairly simple. Do be careful with it. You don't want to scratch the paint up too much, especially if you're trying to resell the bumper. So just be careful with it, but let's go ahead and get this bumper pulled off. One thing I did forget to mention is you do have the wiring for the DRLs here that you do need to consider when you're taking these off. These will still hold the bumper to the car, so you just need to go ahead and undo the clips. There's this one here, of course, hiding underneath the reservoir, and then there will be another clip hiding on the DRL on the other side of the car. Now Z1 has sent me a new rear fender here, so this one's kind of made out of a cloth material. I'm going to go ahead and just undo each of the clips in here. I don't know how many there are, but this entire fender liner for the front and the rear is going to come out and get replaced. So pull all the clips off, and then I think this bolt holds the fender liner on. I can't quite tell. The bottom one isn't held on though, if you can see there. It's just not clipped into that part of the fender liner. But we'll go ahead and unscrew the screw here, undo all those clips, and then we should be able to pull this out. And here are all of the pieces that I ended up taking off to be able to get that fender liner out. There are some of these little plastic screws right here that will line the very top edge. And here you just need to twist those off to be able to remove them. And then there was also a bolt, you can see it in there, that was sitting in the bottom corner down here holding the fender liner off, so you just have to undo that. That's a 10 millimeter. And then of course make sure you take out this screw right here. I ended up just threading that back in so I don't lose it, but you do need to take that out to be able to remove the fender liner here. And this is going to be pretty dirty. Mine was just kind of covered in grass and other stuff, so do be careful of that. And now we just got to take off the one on the driver's side, and then we can start removing the bumper. Alright, now both of these fender liners are removed. Notice I have been keeping hold of all of the clips here. Want to make sure you don't lose any of those, because we will be reusing some of the equipment when we're going to install the new bumpers. Next thing we're going to do now is we're going to remove this reflector from the car. We will be reusing this on the Nismo bumpers, so we're going to go ahead and take that out. Normally when you're doing this, there's going to be a black bracket that's going to sit up here. You can actually see the mark there where all the dust has built up around it. You need to remove that. It's just held on by a few clips. Unfortunately, mine was bent in the crash that I had recently, so mine's not there. But we'll go ahead and take that out. And then if you can see here, there are a couple of nuts that hold on this little reflector on the back. You just need to undo those, and then you should be able to pull it out. Alright, and you'll notice on the reflector housing that there is that wiring harness there. You can either just cut that like I did, or you can actually go ahead and unclip it. But this is more just for the JDM models. It doesn't actually do anything on the American-made cars. And if you do end up getting a functioning reflector, you'll end up just tapping into the brake lights, so you don't really need that. But now that we have the reflector removed, we are done on the bottom section of the bumper here. And now we're going to open up the trunk and start taking out stuff from the top. You can start off by just removing the carpet and any of the cardboard that's sitting underneath this, and then we are going to pull up this rubber sealer all the way up past the panel gap here in these two sections. That way we can remove these panels as well as the back panel here. Now you'll want to remove this plastic cover that hides the bolts for the taillight. You can do this with a trim removal tool fairly easily. The next step is to remove these two 10mm bolts which hold the top of the taillight. One's located here and the other here. And there's one more bolt inside the trunk that's still holding the taillight on, located here. Once you undo this, you should be able to pull the taillight out. You may need to use some force to be able to pull these taillights out, especially if this is the first time doing so. Just make sure you're pulling directly backwards towards the rear of the vehicle, and eventually it should slide out. Also be aware when you pop the taillight out, there will still be a wiring harness attached at the back. I find it's easiest to release this using a flathead screwdriver. When you are disconnecting the harness, try to avoid putting too much strain on the wires, otherwise you may end up with a break, and then you'll end up having to solder the wiring harness back together, which is a pain in the ass. With the taillights removed, you will have 2 plastic clips left on either side of the vehicle. Remove these and then we should be able to pop the bumper off. And to remove the bumper, you will just need to tug on the edges like we did with the front so that they can pop out of the mounts. This will be easier again if you have a buddy to spot you and help hold the bumper up. Unfortunately I didn't, so I set these buckets up to try and hold the bumper partially, so that way we can remove this wiring harness, which sits inside of the bumper that connects to the trunk release. You'll need to pop that out as well to be able to remove the bumper. And with the bumper completely removed from the vehicle, there is some hardware that we're going to need to take off of it, namely of course your license plate, as well as the clips that hold it on, and then you're going to have to undo a bunch of 10mm bolts here to be able to remove the assembly that includes your trunk release button. One thing I would like to point out, with your bumper off, as you guys end up shutting the trunk, make sure you have access to this piece here. This is the only way I know of actually opening the trunk up. You got to use the 2 buttons that are sitting there on top, so you have to plug that back into the wiring harness to be able to open it. If any of you guys know of another way to open this up, I imagine there's some sort of emergency release I just don't know about. Comment down below and let me know. Alright guys, and that's how you take the OEM bumpers off. I actually don't have my new Nismo bumpers yet. That's going to be a couple more days when they get back from the paint shop. But for now, I'm just going to put the car back down on the ground so we can park the other vehicle next to it, and then we'll pick this up here in a couple of days.